Item 149-24, this is an ordinance change to prohibit the sale of tobacco in Newton to anyone born on or after 1/1/2000. Hopefully people have seen this item in their packets. Where we left off with this when we met, I don't know what it was, 2 months ago. We discussed this item. There was enough interest in the committee to get the legal department to draft the ordinance amendment and what that would look like. I don't actually have it in front of me yet, but I believe we decided to go with a different birth date, which was 1/1/2004.
Yes.
2004, okay. And that is what the legal department drafted. So folks have seen the draft of the ordinance in their packets. Any discussion on this is in order tonight, including potentially voting on the item. So we received one letter from the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Commissioner Walsh, that was included with the packet. And with that, Councilor Albright, as the primary sponsor, did you want to introduce this item before we open it up for discussion?
Sure. The idea is to one year at a time, try to prevent kids from getting the habit of smoking. And since we met, as I put in the packet, I think 7 other communities have passed this, so it's getting a little bit of traction. And the one thing that Commissioner Walsh mentioned to me was that she belongs to a consortium with Brookline and 2 other communities, and that she would try to encourage other communities, our neighbors, to go along with us, because as we discussed before, it's harder if it's just Newton, but the more we can push our neighbors into this, the better off we'll be. I hope that you guys are ready to pass this tonight, because it's you know, one of government's jobs is to protect the health and safety of its residents. And I think this would be an important new step that we could take.
Thank you, Councilor Albright. Let me also mention we've been joined by Councilor Greenberg. Any discussion on this item?
I'll start with a couple of thoughts.
Go for it, Councilor Albright.
And thank you, Chair. And I don't know if there's anyone here to specifically actually direct this question to now that I'm looking, but there's a phrase in here, and I just saw it. I will get it back, I swear. The exposure, right? The sale and public exposure to tobacco and e-cigarette products. Public exposure meaning what? Do we know?
Is that something that was in the ordinance before?
It's in the draft ordinance. It looks like it's new language. It's at the top of this 3rd page of the ordinance. At least the end of that sentence is. I'm just curious, like, is that meant to be secondhand smoke in legalese? I don't know.
Don't know.
I didn't see where you're looking, John.
So I'm at the top of what I believe is page 3 of chapter 20. It's at least in the packet that way. It's an edited or added line. It's blue in the online version.
Page.
Well, it says on my version, it says page 3 of the actual
Of the
ordinance.
ordinance.
That's
draft.
page 4.
Okay. 1,
2,
2, 3. Oh, you want 4?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It's I see what you're talking about.
Right?
It's
I'm just curious what that's referring to. Like, I don't think I think it's enough for me to kind of draw some attention to and go, what are we talking about here? Because it is part of the primary point of what we're doing here.
It's the end of the Declaration of Findings and Policy.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Bingo. Last sentence. So maybe that's something we kind of go, okay, let's figure that out. But I don't see it defined in the definitions area. I see lots of other good stuff, but not that. All right, so that, and with that question kind of out there, I'm gonna just continue to kind of go through it with a fine tooth and comb, that is, and rest my gavel back to you.
Okay. Are there other comments? I mean, hopefully people did have time to look this over. Councilor Mickley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to sort of continue with some of the thoughts I was sharing last time, and add some context. So, I want to make a few points on this issue in general and this ordinance in particular. First, on the issue, making sure we protect our youth from tobacco products is an issue I really care about. On a personal level, I have 3 young children. I don't want them having access to tobacco, to nicotine, and also on a policy level. I was a Brookline Town Meeting member about a decade ago, and I supported increasing the minimum age to buy tobacco to prevent tobacco from getting into our schools. It was actually a high schooler that proposed that ordinance, and the policy spread from Brookline, which led to a statewide minimum age of 21, which I'm proud to have played a small part in that movement in taking measures to protect our youth from tobacco. The evidence is clear. Young people, especially teens, are more prone to tobacco and nicotine addiction, and we just need to be serious about how we protect this demographic from these products. My concern, though, with this ordinance in particular is that it doesn't focus on youth and tobacco. Instead, it extends a restriction on individuals and, in a sense, takes away their freedom of choice in a way that sticks with them for the rest of their lives. We're in this ordinance, we're effectively saying that someone that's 20 years old today, in 60 years, when they're 80, they can't make a choice that an 81-year-old or an 82-year-old can. And as a local government, as a governing body, I think we just have to be very careful and deliberate in how much we restrict and for what end when we're talking about individuals' freedom of choice. And personally, I believe this ordinance is an overreach on that matter. That was my concern when we spoke about this issue a few months ago. And it's a sentiment I've heard from many residents since. We all got a lot of emails from residents, many of whom expressed concern about youth and tobacco, which again is an issue I think we need to take seriously. And then many that expressed concern with the overreach of this ordinance. And I think the danger of an overreach here is really twofold. One is the unintended consequences, right? The impact on small businesses, our local economy, how Newton is or isn't a desirable place for businesses to set up. But the other is a more principled risk and danger. It's people's confidence in local government. We don't have unlimited power to limit. We need to use this power cautiously and in a way that is focused on achieving set policy goals. And I just think that this is not the best path towards doing that. I am definitely open to other ways forward. I'm open to increasing the minimum age. Maybe we will, 21 isn't the right number. Maybe it's 22, maybe it's 25, and setting that for a while and seeing how that goes. I'm open to increasing the fines for selling to underage. Again, I think youth and tobacco usage is something we really need to take seriously. I just think that this particular method is not the right approach and is an overreach of our power and restricting individual liberties. I expect I'll be a minority vote on this tonight. I expect I'll probably be a minority if this reaches the full council. But I did want to register this concern because it's a concern we've heard from residents, and I think it's important for the council to reflect the will of the people. That's all.
Great, thank you, sir. Councilor Krinsman had to leave us. He's got some stuff he has to take care of. So I'm going to be, in the absence of your vice chair, sitting at the end of the table this evening. So I'm going to go to Councilor Albright, and then in the room, Councilor Lovins.
Thank you. I'm not sure what interim chair. So with respect to the overreach, I think I've probably said this a million times, but one of the roles of government is to protect the health and safety of our residents. And over 400,000 people die each year with smoking-related diseases. And that's just the people who die from it. Government forces people to wear seatbelts. government stopped people from burning leaves on the street because of the particles that it puts into the air. And Massachusetts does that, not every state does that. So government does things to protect the health and safety of its residents. And I think that's exactly what we're doing here. So I don't think it's an overreach. I think we're trying to prevent, it makes no sense to say, let's have it start at 25. So you want to give them 3 or 4 years to develop the habit and then they won't quit. So what we want to do is prevent people from getting the habit of smoking in the first place. So I think it is not an overreach. I understand your point of view, but it is not an overreach. It's something that we should be doing. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And I think I missed Counselor Lucas's hand there in the shadows. So my apologies. We can let Counselor Lucas go.
I don't know how you missed me with this bright blue shirt.
I see you anyway.
But I just want to piggyback on what Counselor Albright had to say. Government also took the lead out of everyday products. The private sector was not going to do that. Not in our packets, and I don't think it was discussed at the last meeting, but that is in 2014, CVS stopped the sale of tobacco products in their stores. So we've had 10 years to look at CVS to see what would happen to their business. And they're still opening up stores left and right all over the country. So it didn't seem to affect them at all. And I just want to verify, I was hoping someone from the law department was here, but I guess not. I don't know who else is in the room. But I just wanted to verify that if this ordinance passes, it also pertains to vaping.
I'm sorry, pertains to vaping. Thank you. Okay.
And that's it. But I would, if someone could answer that, I don't know if Council Albright could or city staff, but I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you. And and I am in favor of passing the ordinance. Yes.
Great, thank you. Councilor Lovovitz?
So I've changed my mind on this. I had initially expressed conditional support, I would say, when I heard these arguments. But I have to say that after thinking about it a lot, I think Councillor Mickley is very articulate in expressing, you know, some my concerns about this. It's not, I mean, people have said that, you know, people can buy alcohol, and alcohol's a tremendous problem in our society. As an example of allowing people to do things that aren't particularly good for their health. I mean, it's true in the sense that alcohol, I think most people who drink it don't abuse it, whereas I think people who start smoking are more likely to run into problems with their health. But I think on balance, I've been convinced that it is, as Councillor Mickley noted, a little bit of government overreach in this case. I'm sympathetic to the idea that government does have a role in protecting its citizens. But I think in this case, given the fact that the main concern is starting to smoke early on, and I think if we can focus on that, that would be the better course, and do everything we can, as Councillor Mickley mentioned, to discourage younger people from voting, from smoking, excuse me. So I am going to vote against this proposal.
Okay, great. Councillor Maliki?
Okay, I'm still supportive. Let me sort of speak on behalf of Councilor Farrell briefly, though, who really wanted to be here but could not. And he is opposed to it because of the fact that, you know, 30 years from now, whatever, we'd be preventing somebody who is 52 years old smoking and not somebody who's 53 or whatever the math is, but so just wanted to speak up for him a little bit. I think nicotine is so uniquely bad and addictive that if cigarettes are now, I'm not sure they would be legalized if we were starting from scratch, knowing what we know about cigarettes. And I think we're not just protecting the people who we're hopefully preventing from becoming addicted at a young age. We're preventing or protecting the kids they will have in the future who won't have to grow up with parents who smoke and who won't have to choose that. So I think Brookline has kind of done the hard work of establishing that this is legally permissible, and I think we should take advantage of that and follow their lead, and as well as all the other towns that Councilor Albright mentioned that are taking this on.
What's up?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Councilor Mickley, is your hand up again?
Yes, it is.
Great, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just wanted to respond to some of the comments made by Councilor Albright, specifically on the role of government. I want to say I do agree the role of government is to, at times, think about and apply restrictions for the benefit of public health, public well-being, all sorts of things. Seatbelts, great example. My issue with this particular ordinance and approach is just how far it extends restrictions on individual liberty. And I think Councilor Malachi's reference of Councilor Farrell's concern of, the future 50-year-old, 80-year-old, 90-year-old that can't make these choices for themselves when someone maybe just a few years older can, just puts the city of Newton in a strange position where our restrictions don't carry such a strong logic, and where it sort of undermines our use of that power. So I am open to other ways to focus on the issue of youth and tobacco and to make that better addressed to prevent youth from having access to tobacco and nicotine. I just don't support the idea of placing a restriction on someone that, because they were born a certain time, this year versus last year, this restriction carries with them through the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. I'd like to let everybody know we've been joined by Councilor Baker in the room. I don't know if, sorry, Councilor Albright, hand up again.
Yes, Councilor Lucas asked the question about vaping, and as I understand it, it's all tobacco products. So it would include vaping. But I'm sort of surprised at this individual liberties idea for a product that we know causes death. And, we don't want people at the age of 80 to start smoking either. We don't want them to start smoking at any age, but we certainly don't want them to start at the age of 50 or 80 or whatever, because disease is a problem from smoking. And I'm kind of surprised in particular that people from the medical community would not take this on as a thing that we should be doing. But, I hope that you guys will pass this tonight. I see that it's not going in the right direction, but I really think you'll be making a huge mistake by not passing it.
Great, thank you. Sense commentary from Councilor Baker.
I've been listening to the discussion, and I really I'm a little torn on this, but I guess I'm coming down in favor of the ordinance, and I'll tell you part of my reason is I grew up in a tobacco state. I never smoked, but my parents did, and I had I think some impact on my own lung capacity over the years from just being around so much secondary smoke. So I think one of the tests of an ordinance is not just the effect on the individual, but the third-party consequences. And I think there are significant third-party consequences smoking. And therefore, this, we can think about alternatives, but I haven't heard a better alternative yet proposed, and we have a number of other communities on this route. So I'm prepared to support the ordinance, although I fully understand and respect the concerns of my colleagues who have reservations.
Fantastic. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, just a couple of thoughts from my perspective. I was quoted by a gentleman in the room here as having said in our previous session that I'm not a big fan of the ban. However, I do appreciate the fact that, at least as far as I'm aware, nicotine in particular as a substance doesn't really have any redeeming qualities. We don't use it medicinally that I'm aware of anywhere. I do, however, believe that I will abstain from the vote tonight simply because I've heard two questions that I would like definitive answers to. One of which is the concept of vaping, and I tend to agree. I think that Councilor Albright is correct, but I am not familiar enough with vaping or the products that can be vaped, smoked. I don't know I don't even know what the right term is there, but I would like to understand that in more detail. And as I mentioned before, what do we mean by use and exposure to these products? I don't know if that is displaying them in stores or secondhand smoke or both or neither and something else entirely. But that's just my 2 cents. And I am open to a motion here.
Motion to hold, would that be appropriate?
Right, so okay, so
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
hold
Motion to hold until we clarify.
until we get the answers.
There's no urgency to this ordinance. Unless other people feel different.
I think motion to hold is appropriate to get the questions answered rather than
That's all
having
I'm
to
saying.
do it
Yeah.
on the floor.
As opposed to approve with
Yes.
on second.
Right.
Something. Okay. We have a motion to hold on the floor. Is everybody ready to vote in committee? Fantastic.
My hand's up.
I'm sorry, Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. I would be in favor of taking a motion to approve. I'm not on the committee, but I would take a motion to approve, subject to second call, but that is my opinion. The next city council meeting is going to be in July, second week in July, I believe. And that is ample time to get the questions answered and to be put into the report, which we have, again, ample time to prepare a good report to have our questions answered. Thank you.
Fair point. Does that sway anyone's opinion?
Do we have another
Yeah.
meeting? Next.
Programs and services?
Our July meeting is July 10th. It's after the city council.
And then
meeting
the
in
city
July.
council won't meet until August.
Correct.
Yeah. I second that.
Sorry,
If I can, I think that's reasonable.
Speaking.
Councilor Mayhew.
Oh, sorry.
I do just say that, I second that.
Second which, sir?
What Councilor Lucas was saying.
All right. So we have conflicting motions. First one I heard, sorry. Okay, the first motion I heard, right, needs to be voted on, right, from Councilor Lovovitz, which is a motion to hold. So I'm gonna vote on motion to hold. Right, folks in the committee,
I'll withdraw my, unless you want to. I'll withdraw that. motion.
you're gonna
Based on-
withdraw that motion.
Based on.
Does someone in the committee have another motion?
My concern is that, I was prepared to vote for the motion hold. We have, Councilor Princeman is not here. I mean, I'd like to have.
We have lots of absence.
Councilor Farrell is.
Down here, a person to hear the discussion.
And Humphrey.
And then, and Humphrey, and I just, a matter of this consequence where you have a divided committee. It seems to me there's wisdom in having another meeting to resolve those and have a full complement if possible. So I would Maybe not withdraw your motion because I've. prepared the
I'm not withdrawing my motion.
We have a motion to hold
I'm
on the
reinstituting
floor.
my motion.
Fantastic. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, all those, against? Abstain? Fabulous, motion is held. Great. Thank you. So the next item,
Excuse me, Mr. Thank you,
yes,
Chair.
sir.
I do think it's worth a note from the chair through the clerk to the law department to clarify the scope of the ordinance in terms of the vaping issue. And the other is not a legal question, but a policy question. Councilor Bickley had asked about what alternatives are. I assume other communities across some boundaries to find out what their history is, why they came to that conclusion, because this is not the first community. Okay. So I think some more information other than other communities have acted would be helpful to the extent it's available between now.
Thank you, sir. Well said. And so noted. The next item on the agenda tonight is 26424, discussion regarding on-demand transportation system. And I believe we've got several representatives from the city. Director Martin, Director Heath, are you here to talk about that as well?
I am, yeah.
Fantastic. I'll just turn it over to yourself and whomever is going to be presenting.
Great, thank you for that intro. Yeah, we're anxious, eager to share with you the information about the new transportation provider. So joined this evening by Jen Martin, who's our Director of Transportation, Mignon Murray, who's our Senior Services Director, Nicole Friedman, who's our Transportation Planning Coordinator, and Jonathan Yo, our COO, all of whom have been involved in this process. And I believe Nicole has a presentation to share with us this evening, and we're all available to answer questions afterwards.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Friedman. I know many of you, but not all. So for those of you that are newer to council, it's great to meet you. I'm going to tell you about our new on-demand transportation system called GoGo Newton. We're going to start with a little bit of background. Then I'll tell you about GoGo in general, and then GoGo Newton specifically, and then we'll walk through the finances just a little bit. So for background, for many of you know that for the last 6 years, we've had a system called NUMO, Newton in Motion. Prior to that, we were still giving trips to seniors. We were giving about 25,000 trips on taxis. When that was no longer viable, 6 years ago, we launched NUMO for senior services. The system was considered a micro transit system. So we had a fleet anywhere from 4 to 10 vehicles that were NUMO branded, and they were available from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. providing trips. A few years after it started, with grant funding from MassDOT specific for commuters, we were able to expand the system citywide. We served everyone in the city, and it grew to about 6,000 to 8,000 trips per month. A majority of these riders were low income, and a majority were seniors.
Ms. Friedman, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We're just curious. The language is really hard to read on the screen. Is there any way to kind of, go full screen on, from your machine there?
Yeah. Is that bigger? Is it showing up as full screen?
It's kind of off screen too.
I just as a general matter for everybody's information, PowerPoint slides with information in writing really needs to be big enough so that people with old eyes can read.
Yeah. Let me do this. I'll switch it to actually PowerPoint. That was a PDF, and sometimes putting it in PowerPoint mode will be easier. And I can also adjust. So let's do this.
Thank goodness Nicole is doing this, not me.
Okay, so tell me if is that any better for you?
No.
It's
Okay, so we'll do one other.
Maybe you should just tell the story and don't worry about the.
I will. We'll do that. That's fine. Okay. And I will tell the story. So that's a little bit bigger. When grant funding for the commuter system dried up recently in September, we downsized to serve the most important users for the system, which was seniors, older adults, people with low incomes, and people with disabilities. And we're still doing about 3,000 trips a month. Our second contract of 3 years expires this June 30th. So in November, we started preparing the new RFP for new contract. We issued it in November. And we thought of this as an opportunity to figure out how we can have the best service for the users that we were planning. And the users we were planning continue to be people with low incomes, older adults, and people with disabilities. So as many of you know, in June 12th, actually, the mayor announced GoGo Newton. It will launch on July 1, and I want to tell you a little bit more about that service. So what is GoGo? GoGo is, I like to say it is a customer service overlay on top of Uber and Lyft. And it is a company that was designed specifically for older adults to help them use services like Uber and Lyft effectively. One of the things that GoGo does is provide phone customer service. So older adults can actually call in to use Uber and Lyft. They do not need a smartphone. And as you'll see, it does much more than that. Like our prior partner, it's really well established and really successful. It was founded in 2016, and in the last couple of years really grew in popularity. And it's doing, almost 8 million trips in a year across 50 states. So what does it do? Again, our older adults can call in to book a ride, or they can go on a web portal to book a ride, and GoGo will connect the riders with Uber and Lyft vehicles. And the customer service continues throughout the ride. So if they are on a phone, they'll get messages just like you would about when your when your car is coming, what vehicle it is. But you can also get this information over the phone as you're booking a ride. So extremely user-friendly. So their customer service team, they call them GoGo Guardians. And these are the folks that are making sure that the riders on a GoGo system get safely to their destination. So these GoGo Guardians are available 24/7, 365, every day of the year in multiple languages. And when an older adult calls or a user calls the system, they can either talk to a human or go through an automated phone system. And when you listen to it, and I encourage all of you to try it, you'll see that the Guardians are actually really trained in how to talk to older adults.
Nicole,
Yep.
You lost me at about 2 sentences back. For some reason, the sound quality, or you got farther away from the mic, but can you back up for a minute? Maybe.
Yeah. So the GoGo Guardians are the phone customer service team, and they're available 24/7, 365. So when a person wants to use the system, they will call the GoGo 800 number, and they can either choose to talk to a person, or they can press a number to book a ride, or press a number to ask questions. But it is they can use sort of an automated phone system or talk to a human. And whether it's a human or they've chosen to do the automated system, it's really set up to talk well with seniors. Very clear voices. They talk a little bit slower, and they're talking directly to the older adults. The system is set up so it can support 20 unique impairments automatically. So if someone is not able to walk well, needs help with groceries, uses a walker, uses a cane, this is all built into the system, and they will know. There's a system so that when the rider gets into the vehicle, they can set it up so their son or daughter or someone else is getting a text message tracking them the entire time they take this ride to make sure they get to their destination. And a lot of people say, well, how is it safe? It's using Uber and Lyft. And there's a lot of overlays that GoGo has worked on with Uber and Lyft. So the very first time a vehicle might get called that is an Uber or Lyft, if that driver is not known to the GoGo system, one of these GoGo Guardians will actually be on the phone talking to that driver to make sure they are an appropriate driver to be transporting seniors. They'll understand what the make and model of the vehicle is. Is it too high to get in? Is it a sports car? They would be ruled out instantly. They're also going to ask questions about, well, you know, are you willing to help a senior if they have a cane? Are you going to be able to help them with groceries? And if the driver says no, they're not willing to help, they will never be used for GoGo. And then the other thing it screens is making sure that any driver that is allowed into the GoGo system has a very high rating. I think it's 4.7 or higher stars. I can't remember exactly what it is. Anyone that doesn't have a really stellar rating is not allowed in the GoGo system. So GoGo says almost 30% of the potential Uber Lyft drivers don't make the cut, and they're really only keeping it to the best of them. Another thing that the system does that we struggled with it in Uber and Lyft is, or when we had the Numo system, is let's say an individual wants to take a ride to, say, a shopping mall to get a haircut. If you look up the location in Google Maps, which is historically what's done, it may actually send you to the wrong location in the shopping mall. Not a big deal if you're really able-bodied, but if you are in a wheelchair or if you're 95, that can be an emergency situation if you're standing out there waiting for your ride and they're on the other side of a shopping mall. GoGo Guardians are actually verifying the actual location of every trip to make sure it matches where the senior went. So that vehicle is going to go right to the hair salon and not to the other side of the shopping mall. And that happens over and over and over with existing systems. And we had that challenge a lot with VIA. So for our Newton system, it will be on-demand service. So you can book your trip in real time and it will come generally in less than 20 minutes. You can also do pre-scheduled trips. And a lot of our folks are taking the trips to medical appointments. They want to schedule it the second they have scheduled that medical appointment, even if it's 6 months out or 9 months out. So the system can do on-demand and pre-scheduled. One of the biggest requests that we got with the Numo system, and we heard it over and over and over, is we want more hours, 24/7. And with our old system of microtransit, that was an unaffordable option. In the microtransit system, the city paid on a per vehicle hour method. So every hour a driver was on the road, every hour a vehicle was on the road, we were paying $57 to $60. So it was really hard for us to expand the hours. It was very expensive if we wanted to expand the hours. We would need 4 to 10 vehicles at every hour. Because we're using Uber and Lyft, we are paying now on a per trip rate. So it doesn't matter if it is a period of time that's busy or slow. We're not paying for every vehicle circulating. We're just paying for the trips we use. This also allowed us to accommodate the number 2 request that we heard frequently, which was we want to go places beyond just Newton. And the reality is, in the real world, people don't just live, work, and play only in Newton. They do need to go to other areas. So now you can take a trip from or to anywhere in Newton, but also go to Waltham, Weston, Wellesley, Needham, Brookline, and Watertown, our neighboring communities. You either have to begin or end in Newton, so you can't take a trip from Weston to Waltham, but as long as your trip begins or ends in Newton, you can get to these neighboring towns. The other thing we are able to do is provide more than 15 medical locations in Boston, and we'll explain how we can do that. But again, in our microtransit system, this would not have been possible. To have enough vehicles circling in the system so that we could get someone all the way into Boston would have been a completely unaffordable thing to even consider. You'd need so many vehicles. The other improvement, of course, is we'll have much better customer service that really can work with the populations that we have. And because there's more vehicles circling, there'll be greater reliability. We had some challenges where sometimes there wasn't a vehicle ready to pick someone up and people would not be able to get a trip with us. The likelihood of that will be way down. So again, it launches July 1st, on demand and pre-scheduled, 24/7, 365, and an expanded service area. In terms of who can use it, we are keeping the 3 main categories we had. So since September 2023, we were serving older adults, people with disabilities, and people with low incomes. There's some minor tweaks, but very low income is all ages. So anyone that lives in Newton that is on public assistance that is over 18 years old, they can take the system. They get 12 one-way trips each month. There's a cap. The rider will pay the first $4. We will subsidize and pay the next $10 up until a $14 trip. And the rider pays the rest. So if we have a rider that takes 12 trips all the way into Boston for a medical appointment, they very well may need to be subsidizing a little bit, but we will pay up to $10 on our trip. The next category is older adults and people with disabilities who are over 18 that are low income. Yeah.
There's a question.
Nicole, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Somebody takes trips into Boston. I thought Boston was not part of the service.
Medical facilities
Oh.
in Boston.
In Boston.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you look at this map, and it might be a little harder to see, there's 15 points here that are starred. They're all medical appointments. Places like Spalding Rehab, Tufts Medical Center, Beth Israel Deaconess, Mass Eye and Ear. Our riders can now make appointments and be transported into those appointments in Boston.
Thank
Again, if it's a really expensive trip, the subsidy, they will end up paying the rest, incurring the rest of the fees.
Oh, I have another question.
Yeah.
Do we know sort of the cost of a trip between here and a medical facility, or here and Waltham, or one of the outlying communities?
The average trip of 5 miles or under is about $14. So Newton and the remaining communities.
And into Boston?
Boston would be more. I didn't map out each one of them because there's a big difference between, say, Spalding Rehab or St. Elizabeth's.
And I would further assume that because this is kind of a layer on top of Uber or Lyft, like peak pricing and things like that could still also apply.
Yeah, yeah. And in every literature we put out, we did let people know about that.
Great, thank you. And Councilor Lucas has a question as well, if we may, because there's clearly a lot of information here, so it might be easier to take questions kind of as you go through this.
That's fine.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Thank you. I had to step away for a brief moment, and I don't know if I missed it. But it says right here on the screen in this first column, Newton pays the next $10. I was just wondering, how is this being funded?
That'll be the last slide.
Oh, I thought we were done. You're done with your slides.
No, I've got more slides.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. So we've got the very low income folks. Those are people on public assistance, and that's all ages over 18. Low income is anyone with an income under 78,600, who is either an older adult or a person with a disabilities over 18. We subsidize a few less trips each month. We subsidize 8 trips instead of 12. The rider pays the first 6, Newton pays the next 8. And then any older adult and any person with a disability over 18, we provide about 4 one-way trips each month, and the rider pays the first 8. So
again,
less of a subsidy, but still a subsidy.
When a potential rider inquires about a ride, they will know the full cost of the ride when they request it before they have to pay.
Yeah, before the vehicle ever comes, they will know the full cost of the ride. I think on pre-scheduled, they will know a little before, but they won't know at the time they pre-schedule.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
does that mean if they hit bad traffic or something and it takes longer than expected, they're still paying the price that they were told before they started the ride?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if it's completely locked in the second they get in the vehicle.
I believe it is for Uber, but that doesn't mean.
We can double check that. We were very clear about wanting a transparent pricing structure.
Thank you.
Great. So in terms of getting started, and this is something you can share with your constituents when you get questions. Step one is a verification process. So we are verifying that these are Newton residents. We are verifying their age, both that they're over 18 and, if applicable, that they're an older adult over 65. And we are verifying, if applicable, whether they're on public assistance, their income, or a disability status. And to be as user-friendly as possible, people can apply online or get verified online. They can also make an appointment and we'll walk them through it. And we have sort of open house drop-in sessions, the first one being at the Newton Free Library, more to come on. And the senior session is doing some Zooms to help people do this. So there's no one that won't be able to do the verification process. We have multiple avenues. Once someone is verified, GoGo will reach out to them before July 1st, as long as they've applied by then, and contact them to complete the process to be onboarded with GoGo. And the main thing that GoGo is going to need is some form of payment in the system. So just like when you take an Uber and a Lyft, they have your credit card. They will need a credit card. And there are options for folks that are unbanked or don't have a credit card that we have on our website as well. And then the third thing is to book a trip. And again, you can do it by phone, or you can go to the website and book a trip. There is a GoGo app coming out. The app is fully developed. And interestingly, it needs to be approved by Apple to go up in the Apple store. So GoGo is waiting for that. But it is in our contract that there will be an app coming soon. Okay. Really important for us is a smooth transition. So we've been communicating this transition in as many ways as possible. Most of you, I'm sure, saw the mayor's newsletter on 6/12 announcing the transition. That was the beginning of the communications. Numo has also communicated with all of the drivers to let them know about this transition. They've actually given them bonuses and extra pay to stay on board right through the end. And they've also been communicating with them about how they could be an Uber and Lyft driver that is serving GoGo. And, you know, our drivers have been a real highlight of the Numo system, and we wanted to do well by them. Our senior services department is putting out a printed newsletter at the end of this month, and they've shared an e-newsletter. We're also reaching out to all of the registered Numo is going to reach out to all the registered riders. We're going to reach out to all the ones who were low income and or had a disability. We have in-app notifications. We've talked to Newton Public Schools. We are talking to you, and we are working with social service agencies specifically for people with low incomes. And in terms of financials, getting to the question you asked is, how are we paying for this? We have had a senior transportation system now for more than 16 years. When we started in 2019 with Numo, the city at that point was putting in $275,000 for a senior system. We still put in $275,000 for a senior system. So that same amount of money continues. We actually have not raised that amount of money. And I think that's a credit to doing a really good job on controlling costs. The senior department gets a state formula grant, so 30,000 of the funding is from that. And we have been lucky since 2019, I shouldn't say lucky, but since about 2019 or 2020, we've received an annual CTGP grant. It's Community Transportation Grant Program funding. It's funding specific for transportation for older adults, people with disabilities, people with low incomes, so more vulnerable populations. And we have 190,000 secured for FY25. So we have 495,000 in revenue. Our anticipated expenses are right now 420,000, and we want to be very careful with the new system to make sure that we have the money, which is why you see this as 420 and the total revenue is 495. And again, this is a very different model than the microtransit system have. The most of our expenses is this trip fee. So The Uber and Lyft fees are passed directly on with no surcharge by GoGo to both the rider and to the city. So again, if it's a very low income, they will pay the first $4. We will pay up to the next $10 of that fare, and GoGo does not upcharge that at all. Where they make their money is we pay them an annual fee of 30,000. We are paying 10,000 to get a higher level of insurance and a one-time 10,000 setup fee. The other thing is on a phone service fee, and this will go down after the first year. But again, when someone is booking a ride by phone, they can press 1 to use the automated system, or they can press to talk to a live human. When they talk to a live human, it's a $5 per call fee. And the city will be paying that fee, at least initially, for any fee for the $5 fee for the call, for any subsidized trip. So any trip that we are subsidizing will pay that fee. We expect that number to go down. So the average cost to the city of a trip is $11, which is really quite good. And with that, I hand it over to everyone for questions.
Question. Yeah, we have a couple of questions online first. Yeah. Counselor, right, I think I saw Counselor Greenberg first, and then Counselor Lucas.
Okay, thank you, Interim Chair. Hi, Nicole, nice to see you.
You as well. Great to see you.
This program sounds wonderful. I just need some clarity on the drivers. Are the drivers Uber and Lyft drivers, or are they GoGo drivers?
They are Uber and Lyft drivers. And like I said, though, the thing that GoGo does that's really important is they only take about, they reject about 30% of the drivers that try to come into the system. So they're only taking ones that are highly rated, and they have talked to every driver before their very first trip to make sure they are an appropriate driver for the system.
Go ahead.
Yep. And then the other safeguard is, of course, the seniors can have automated text messages go to a family member or friend.
I see. And will their cars have a GoGo label on it, like the Lyft and Uber stickers?
They will not.
They
will not. But when they're booking the trip, the person or the automated voice will be very clear, like, expect a silver, Kia Niro to pick you up with this license plate. And it's in a way that, older adults in particular will be able to hear the information and understand it.
Oh, good. And does the person taking the ride tip the driver, or do they not accept tips?
They will accept tips just like Uber and Lyft accept tips, and tips are not required.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Nicole.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Friedman, thank you. Can you go back to that last slide that had the numbers, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. What does I must have missed it. What does CTGP stand for?
It's the Community Transit Grant Program. It comes through the Mass Department of Transportation. It is money that is specific for transportation of vulnerable populations, which there's a technical term that people use, which is community transportation. So it's really money for older adults, people with disabilities, low-income populations.
Okay, thank you. And it says city $275,000. How is this being funded by the city?
It has been in the budget every year, but I think I'm going to have Jonathan.
Yeah, I could jump in. This 275 has been in the Senior Services Department budget for many years.
At least 16 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Mr. Yo, you're saying this 275 is in the budget book or budget packets, and it's in the senior services section?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right, and you said it's been in there every year, more or less?
Every year for a decade, yeah, over a
Really?
decade.
Okay,
Every
and,
16.
and previously we were spending this money towards Numo?
Correct. It was Numo, and before Numo, it was being spent for taxi cabs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great, thank you. And I believe Counselor Lovovitz, you had a question?
Yes, can you go back to that slide again?
Financial or the first one on background? Yep, there you go.
So, the expenses, which of those, if any, go to GoGo? I'm curious how GoGo makes its money.
It's a good point. They don't make a lot, necessarily. The annual fee,
Okay,
the insurance, but I don't think they make money off that. The setup fee is, I believe, a one-time fee. And then they make money off the phone service fee. So their real money is the annual fee and the phone service fee.
okay, and then, you know,
I had the same question. I mean, it was a great question.
yeah. You know, it is important that as many people be informed of this opportunity as possible. I'd like to, and some of the other counselors might want to put this in their newsletter as well. Can you send us some kind of a summary that we could put in our newsletter?
Yeah.
In terms of what you said about registering and, you know, some of those, just an outline of what you said that would be more appropriate to end users.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll send you the constant contact that the mayor put out in her newsletter. And you can also see what the website is. It's newtonma.gov/gogo. So we'll direct you to that as well, which has even more information. So you can decide for your constituents how detailed you want to get or not. But, you know, someone could know everything by going to that website as well. But we can include that for you.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a full team. So you're looking also at Mignon, Director of Senior Services, and Jen Martin as well, who's done incredible work, as well as Jonathan, Barney, and Mignon staff.
Well, thank the entire staff. Thank you.
Great, and I believe I have Counselor Maliki in the room.
Thank you. You said on the phone service fee, the city picks it up, the $5 fee for subsidized rides. Are all rides subsidized, or?
Yeah, so it's a great question. As you can see in this chart, for each tier or category, we have a trip cap for the month.
Right.
So if someone is low income, they can do 8 trips that will be subsidized each month. They can continue to use the system. They will just pay the full amount after that. It's actually still technically better for them, because if they were to use it completely as an individual, they would have to pay, I think it's a monthly fee, or they would have extra fees. So we were not subsidizing those trips, but it's still better for them to be part of the system.
So if they were just using Uber, I'm kind of like an Uber novice because I don't use it, but if they were to use Uber on their own without being part of this, they'd be paying some kind of fee aside from their trip fees?
Thank you for clarifying. No, and I should have been clearer. If they were to use GoGo on their own, they would end up paying the call fee themselves, and I think they may have to pay a monthly fee to be part of GoGo. So that, you know, they don't have to pay any of those fees when they're part of our system, whether or not they are within these 8 trips or on their 9th trip.
Okay, and so if they want to exceed their cap for number of trips per month, they would be paying the full amount of the ride fee.
Exactly.
And would they be, and you're going to clarify whether the fee, the trip fee is known at the beginning of the trip? Like it is plugged in as opposed to being subject to traffic conditions or detours or whatever.
Yeah, and we might be able to confirm while we're on here, we can look through the RFP. I mean, we were very clear that we want them to know what the fee is ahead of time.
And is that a benefit they would get on their,
Yeah,
sort of the cap as well, or?
yeah, that won't change.
Right, and are there other towns that are already using GoGo?
Yeah,
GoGo?
in fact, our neighbors, I think Brookline does subsidize GoGo trips, and I think is it Watertown or?
Watertown, it has a pilot right now where they're piloting through June, offering 2 subsidized rides a month to seniors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's also important to understand that GoGo is in, is it 500 communities, Nicole?
Yeah.
Across the country. This company is being used everywhere, and I think that's part of why, they're not making a huge amount of money off of Newton, but they're in many communities. They've got a big system in place.
Great, thank you. Counselor Baker?
So, can you just clarify the difference between this and the T ride? Because we have, we all.
Yeah. The ride is a service of the MBTA, and it is for individuals that cannot take the T. And the ride is not on demand. And that's a big deal. You often have to book those trips 48 hours in advance. Ours, if you do need a wheelchair vehicle, you do have to book it in advance, but all of the other trips, you can book in real time.
But is it cost less or is it free? What's the difference? In other words, if you're a senior who has the capability to plan in advance, is our senior services department prepared to advise people to say, if you can go take a ride as opposed to GoGo, or is there,
The ride is only open to individuals with disabilities.
Not no
only disabilities?
Yeah. The ride is the system to make the MBTA accessible. So
Right.
it's their
Yes.
parallel service.
Getting at, GoGo provides services for people with disabilities, true, so it seems to me part of the function of our own senior services is to explain to people the choices they have, if they have those choices. They may not, maybe a very limited group.
Yeah, and our senior services does that a lot. They will also let people know about the ride and any other systems that we have.
You're absolutely right, and residents may want to take advantage of both systems. They could sign up for GoGo and use those rides that they get subsidized, and then they could also be a member of the ride or sign up for the ride and use that system if it suits them for other purposes. So we would certainly help people navigate, what would be best for them, but they certainly have choice in how they do this, and we will explain that sometimes something else might work better for them than one thing.
And is the team that is assigned, the Guardians, assigned only to Newton, or are they servicing other communities?
The Guardians serve everyone.
I guess the point I'm getting at is that obviously, if I were GoGo, I've got a bunch of different sort of subcontracts that I've got to manage with one dispatch system. And so people would have to call up and say, I'm a new resident, and then they go into some sorting system, I guess, because if somebody called up and said, I live in Watertown, and they're in the system, for example, our Newton people are going to be competing with people from other communities for just access to the dispatch system, right? They're not exclusively for Newton.
They're not exclusively for Newton. In our contract, we have service levels, also known as KPIs, that specify what the average wait time needs to be, both for a ride as well as for customer service and a call. So, the point of going with GoGo is this is what they do. They know how to staff up to have the right amount of people to be available for phone customer service. and for dispatching.
And this,
There's a lot behind the scenes that's automated as well. Even though there is the option for a person, when you're pushing the buttons, it's fully automated.
the other question just is, this is a contract that, I can't remember, what's the duration of the contract? What?
It's 1 year with with 2 options to renew for 1 year each,
So-
so you can go 3 years.
Do we have any cross protection? You know, it's GoGo's interest to have economies of scale. So the more communities they sign up, the better off for them. But if they're effectively a monopoly provider, at some point, they can reap monopoly rewards. I mean, because obviously that's part of their business model. Do we have any protection from Newton against price increases, or once you get into the system, we're going out of one right now because it didn't seem to work the way we wanted to. And GoGo has no competitors, as I hear it, in this model, other than just basic Uber and Lyft services, right? You could always buy those independently, but you don't get the subsidy. I guess what I'm asking is, what are we buying into over the long haul as opposed to the 1 year?
Well, the prices are of course fixed for the length of the contract, so if it's a 3-year contract, the prices are fixed in the contract already. But again, it's a 1-year contract and we have the option to renew it 2 different times for 1 year each. So a 1-year contract is obviously very short, and that keeps people on their toes.
Sorry, at the same rate? The renewal?
The prices are fixed for the duration of the contract, whether it's 1 year or 3 years.
Okay. And at the end of 2 years, or whatever period of time we try this out, right? Because it's going to be an experiment in itself. But if the city wants to continue, is there any bidding process involved, or do we just take whatever the cost of the system that they say they want to charge us?
At the end of the contract, about 6 to 9 months ahead, we would plan another bid. And we've been very good with the bid that we just did, we were very good in terms of making it competitive, reaching out to a number of vendors to get them to bid. And we would do the same in 2.5 years to make sure that we have a competitive bid again.
There are other players in this space. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Absolutely. One thing we said is we will have the most competitive bid process if we are open-minded. So in our last bid, we were open to micro transit systems. We were open to, Uber and Lyft bidding directly. We were open to this GoGo model. They can all work. It's their job to tell us why they're the best service and show us their prices. So there may not be anyone just like GoGo, but there's people that are serving seniors and serving them effectively, and we would get them to bid as well.
All set?
Yeah.
Council Lebovitz?
So again, in terms of informing end users, I think it's important that we tell them what happens in terms of charges and access to the program if they've used the full discounted prices.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know that. And the other, so that should be part of the information packet that you can make available. The other one is what Councillor Maliki was asking about, that you said you're going to confirm that price that they'll receive the price before they pay for the ride. So that they're informed, and it's a fixed price. It won't vary depending on traffic and other circumstances. Right. I think they need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, well, I will find out if it's fixed to like the penny or if there's like a little wiggle room of like 1 or 2%. But I
think we need to inform them.
Yeah, and we do. Well, in fact, we also have a flyer that we can send you, but we make it very clear to the riders that you have the limited number of trips that are subsidized, and you can still use the system afterwards, but they're paying the whole thing. So we do have that in all of our literature, and we'll send it to you.
I don't mean a flyer, I mean online.
Yeah, we have it. Yeah, what's great is we have almost the same information. So on the senior center website and newtonma.gov/gogo, full information. And you know, we're using the same information in almost everywhere that we put it out, so it's consistent.
So hopefully and my last question is there a way to, have our end users, under GoGo, rate the GoGo service so that at the end of toward the end of the year, we know how the users have rated it?
Yeah, so
If they rate it low and you don't know that, you know, we could be renewing the contract for a service that people aren't happy with.
yeah, I agree 100%. So GoGo has a rating system. We will, and we did this with Numo as well. There's the rating system that they solicit from the riders, but we've always done an annual survey. And we're putting it out to our folks, you know, through the senior center, through the mayor's newsletter, in all of our channels. And we ask for a rating as well there, and those ratings will never look exactly the same. You know, when we reach all seniors, we'll get the ones that stop using it too.
Yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, great, thanks. I also want to recognize we've been rejoined by Councilor and Chair Krinsman. Welcome, sir. Didn't know if, you know, if you would like me to step aside and you want to take this over, or you want to let me just finish this out?
Why don't you finish this item?
Fantastic, thank you, sir. Are there any other comments, thoughts, questions? My only 2 cents here, and I think the city's done a fabulous job. I'll echo that same sentiment. It does seem to me like the key statement here seems to be we've contracted with GoGo that has basically white labeled Uber as a service and added some value through the additional questions and the services and the vetting of the drivers. So I think that we've got a great opportunity for a really solid program, or at least as solid as anyone believes Uber to be. I'm fairly biased because I'm a big fan of that service. But from that perspective, thank you everyone for the presentation and the information. The only question really that I had that nobody else specifically asked, are you bringing this same presentation to finance next or soon, or?
I do what I'm told in these cases and answer their team. So I'll leave it
I don't
to
know. It's a question maybe for Jacqueline. I'm not sure if it was referred there by the clerk's office.
The item, it's only referred to the program.
Yeah.
It's
So
all
there's nothing new financially. I mean, it's the same budget item that's in our budget. So if the finance committee wants to hear it, we'll be happy to do that.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, I'm open to a motion.
Is there a motion on this?
Yeah, I'm assuming we're gonna NAN this item. Or do we want to hold it for future reporting, although the item is written for discussion?
What would the motion be?
You can
Motion to NAN.
NAN,
No
no
action.
action necessary, or
I
those are
move.
the options.
I move no action necessary.
I think that's appropriate here. Is everyone ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fabulous. I feel myself as well. Any negatives? Any no votes? I butchered that statement, but I think you know what I mean. Any abstentions? Fantastic. That motion is approved. And I believe I heard that this last item, 4624, is going to be postponed. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, so I think this originally, my apologies to the committee, this was originally supposed to be an update from Councilor Danberg and some of the folks who were working on this plastic use water bill, plastic water bottle item. They, Councilor Danberg contacted me a couple days ago and said they're actually not even ready to give any sort of a substantive update. So why don't we just hold the item and put it off? And I thought that would probably be acceptable to the members of the committee. So I'll open it up for a motion to hold.
So moved.
Councilor Oliver has moved hold. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I believe that's unanimous. We can hold. Again, I want to apologize to you all for racing out of there. Like I said, my daughter was in a car accident, so I had to go help her out with that and get her out of there. So again, my apologies to all of you for racing off like that, but I appreciate your indulgence and I hope you understand.
Hope she's all right.
Yeah, as long as she's all right.
She's all right. All is well. And with that, I think we can adjourn.
We are free to adjourn. That's correct.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Is the